quite a while ago, probably so far in the past now that this video will not be able to capitalize on the success of that video, the Japanese band Haku made a really excellent cover of a song by the band Mono no Aware called Kamu Kamo Shikamo Niro Kamo. You can watch the original on YouTube, there's a full music video for it, and the cover by Haku is also easy to find. But why did this song go viral beyond the fact that it's, pretty catchy and very well done? Well, it's because it's really, really hard to sing, as it's filled with Japanese tongue twisters, or are as known in Japanese, hayakuchi kotoba, literally fast mouth words. So what are they in this song? What do they mean? Why are they hard to say? Let's do that. That's this video. That's what you're getting into if you keep watching it. So for all of these lines, basically what the song does is they take a well-known Japanese tongue twister and they expand it a bit to make it a little bit more difficult and fit the rhythm of the song. The one that starts the song is the one that probably actually anyone learns if you ask a Japanese person for a tongue twister, as it is namamugi namagome namatamago. So this is literally raw, like unprocessed or uncooked wheat, uncooked rice, and raw eggs, which you should absolutely put on your gyudon. If you haven't, it's fantastic. The next line, though, is not part of the original tongue twister, but the namonai karo mise ni kai ni iko is we don't have anything, so let's go buy stuff at the store. And this makes it harder because there's some rhyme, right? We have tamago, kai ni ko. I'm gonna put things actually in romanization because I think it's easier for non-Japanese people at least to see the wordplay that's going on. And of course, the repetition of nama and the start of the first line with nanmo kind of has that, it's trickier to say than things that aren't tricky to say. Withholding being there's nothing around, so let's go buy some stuff at the store. The next is then a line about pajamas. Just like we have red leather, yellow leather in English, this is aka pajama, ki pajama, cha pajama, which is red pajamas, yellow pajamas, and then brown pajamas. You're just supposed to say that a whole bunch of times, and every time you say it, it gets harder. The line that follows it though, gucha gucha na mama okarete mecha jama, is really fun. Gucha gucha is to be like, in a state of disarray. The namama part, that's like a whole grammar pattern, which means kind of just like as it is. It's a very easy grammar point to learn, but a tricky one to get like when you should use it in your head. But basically, okarete, so things have been, the pajamas, the things have been left in a gucha gucha state, and it is mecha jama, or an extremely, disruptive. And jama, of course, rhymes with pajama, and mecha, gucha, jama, they all kind of have a sound sequence together. And actually, what's really clever here, in my opinion, is the namama grammar point I mentioned earlier links back to our prior verse of nama, right? Nama, namama. It's not an easy thing to say, especially when you have to say it right after you talked about all the raw stuff. The next line is about frogs, which is kairu pyoko pyoko, mi pyoko pyoko, owasete pyoko pyoko, mu pyoko pyoko. So this is, the frogs are jumping or bouncing. Pyoko pyoko is the onomatopoeia for jumping, bouncing around. 3 jump or bounce. They jump or bounce together, 6 jump or bounce. If that's hard to understand, well, yeah, does she sell seashells down by the seashore? If she did, why? That's not a good place to sell them. You can just pick them up there. But Japanese people find this confusing too. Here's a really funny Yahoo Chiyobukurō thing I found where somebody was trying to visualize what this would look like. But the second part of that, the part about the frogs jumping together and the 6 frogs, is cut from this, and instead we get haeba fuete. This cow verb, by the way, is one that I think is very important to learn. I kind of wish it was introduced in textbooks more earlier because it's very easy to think of this as to buy, but this cow, which is written with a different kanji than the bai cow, means to take care of, to raise an animal. So if you buy them and it increases, imaya jugo pyoko pyoko, or there's 15 of them. It plays with the listener's inherent expectations that there will be 6 and increases it to 15, which is funny because expectations violated. That's the inherent thing that makes anything funny. The next line is then actually not based in an extant tongue twister. It's just something that's made up for the song, which is, fine, they can do that. So you have shukushinshu at the beginning, which as far as I know is not like a common word, but you can figure out what it means from looking at the kanji because shuku is to celebrate and then shinshun is actually the new year, not new spring. It's like a happy new year something, and the something that follows is a jazzu chanson sho, which again is just hard to say. I probably did a bad job, but that is jazz. And then chanson is a French song type. I'm not really familiar with it. And then a show is a show. So it's a French-style jazz show on New Year's, which they mazu sanshu moatte. So basically do it 3 times around. And then yu shusho, which is to get the top prize. So of course, shukushinsho and yu shusho are hard to say next to each other. And they're especially hard to say next to each other when you pop in jazzu chanson sho in the middle of that. But this one's original. This is new to the song. Now that all repeats, and then we get a new one which is based on a extant tongue twister, which is Tonari no kyaku wa kakiku kyaku, or the customer next to me is a customer who eats persimmons. So the difficulty here is basically the kyaku combined with kakiku kyaku, but then they make it even harder by adding the next line, which is yokuku toki ni kiki mimi tateta raba takeyabu yake kaketa. So basically, the person next to you is eating these persimmons, and while you were listening intently while they were eating, the bamboo grove was set on fire. Or started to burn down, basically. And as you can see from the romanization, there's just a lot of things in there that make it really tricky to say. We then move to an incredibly classic one. This is like the sentence that all Japanese people and all, honestly, non-Japanese people present when somebody complains about kanji as a sentence that you really need kanji to understand, because it's niwa 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 tori ga iru, which is just there are two chickens in the yard. There's a bunch of versions of this, like there's some that have crocodile, there's some that use like the front yard, but basically niwa, right, in the yard, niwa, marking it as the location of existence and the topic of the sentence. Niwa, so 2 wings worth, which is how we count birds. Niwatori, or yard birds, which is the literal meaning of the Japanese word for a chicken, ga iru, so they exist. And then the next line is just more of this niwa niwa stuff, but again, original to the song, because they go on to say, niwa 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 ga niwaka ni hiro sugiru na, which is 4 2 wings worth of chickens again. We're counting chickens via their wings, chickens and bunnies. The yard is niwaka ni, too big. So the niwaka there is an adverb meaning suddenly, so the yard is suddenly too big for the birds. I'm not sure how a yard suddenly changes size, but the point of this, of course, is to brag about how wealthy they are because they have a yard which is big enough to hold at least 2 chickens. Ooh, someone doesn't live in Sydney. Ooh, congratulations. You have a yard that can fit more than 2 chickens in it. It's really rude, honestly. The next line is also original to the song, I think. Not an established tongue twister, but it is a tongue twister for sure, because you have hibi hebi no ho no bibi no habaya. So days and days, hibi. The cheeks of snakes, hebi no ho no hibi, which is cracks, and then the haba, the width. So day to day, every day, the width of the cracks in the snake's cheeks, and habu no ho no hibi no haba. So that's the same thing, but with habu, which is a viper, so a type of snake. Ni bibite, so this is the verb bibiru, which is to be scared. And if you look at it, there's just a lot of ha's and he's and be's and stuff like that. Let's try it all at once. Hibi hebi no ho no hibi no haba ya habu no ho no hibi no haba ni bibite. Less than 10 takes, quite happy with that. And then we go on to a completely different statement, which is a extant, Hayaku Chikotoba, but actually is based off kind of variations in this Hayaku Chikotoba. So what the song goes with is Ei no jouzu na bozu, or a monk who is good at drawing pictures, ga jouzu ni byobu ni bozu to jouzu no e o kaita. And that is, on a folding screen, which is the byobu, they deftly, jouzuni, right, drew a picture of Jaws, like the shark from Jaws, and another monk. And while that seems like some of that had to be made up, it's kind of not. Like here is another Yahoo Chiebukuro post from 2013 where somebody is asking which one of these 3 versions of basically this Hayaku Chikotoba are correct. And you can see elements of every single thing that we just said. There's the Jaws one, there's some other ones. The placement of Jozu goes to different places. And so it seems like this is one that's just kind of floated out there in a bunch of forms, and then in the song they jam them all together to make a really fun, hard to say line. Indeed, when it's actually sung in the song, it has one of the most like what kind of feels to it, at least in my opinion. Except for, of course, the next line, which is one of the hardest to say, especially with any kind of time pressure, with the very Dr. Seuss-like Rabaka robaka, robaka rabaka wakaranai no de, which is just like, I don't know if it is a mule or a donkey or a mule. And then it goes on to say, rabato roba o karabetara. So that again is adding a verb in there that has that kind of repeated sound. In this case, if you compare a donkey and a mule, raba roba kurabetara, or more accurately in this context, when I compared the two, robaka rabaka wakaranakata. I did not understand if it was, or I couldn't figure out which one it was. So what makes this one difficult is, of course, a lot of ras, a lot of ros, and a lot of bas all together within the, you can see in the romanization. And again, I think this one is original. Things then slow down for kono kugi wa hikinikui kugi da, or this nail, kugi is a nail, kugi, that is hard to pull out, hikinikui. This is an extant tongue twister that normally ends there, but the song goes on to say, hikinikui ga hikinukeba, hikinukeru dake maramashita. Or, it is hard to pull out, but if you can pull it out, if you're able to pull it out, it's good that it can be pulled out. Again, don't look for like deep meaning in a tongue twister. This part adds difficulty to it by repeating the hikinikui, but also changing the phrasing of it, right? You have hikinikui, but then the verb hikinuku being in the hikinukeru form can be, and that's repeated twice, which makes the whole thing hard to say. And then you have the one that makes like the title of the song, which I think is also original, because this is kore wa kamu kamo shikamo nido mo kamo, or I will maybe bite this. Kore wa kamu, to bite. Kamo, a shortening of kamoshiremasen, perhaps. Shikamo, moreover. Nido kamo, twice, maybe. And then it goes on to say, kamu na kamunato, or basically in the context, telling myself, don't bite it, don't bite it. Mayoi komari kamaeteru to. And this is something that like is just jamming a bunch of verbs together to make like a new kind of verb. But basically you have mayoi, right, which is that you're like at a loss. Kumari, that you're troubled. And then kamaeteru is like you're putting on a stance trying to do this. And then that follows by to kamu kamo. And that to is like, if you're doing this, you may bite it. So if we try to translate this, it's like, I might bite this, or actually, you know what, it could be this might bite. The context is the context of the Haiku Chikotaba is not as clear as it could be. But let's go with I might bite this. In fact, I might bite it twice. But if I'm telling myself, don't bite it, and I put myself into that kind of vibe and at a loss of what to do, that actually might make me bite it. And then the next line is very, very similar, but changes nido to kimi. So it's kore wa kamu kamo shikamo kimi mo kamo. Or like I might bite you as well, or again, you might bite it as well. From the music video, the original music video, it does seem to look like it's kind of threatening. And then the final line is kamuki mo suru kudo, or like I have the feeling of the desire to bite. Itsu demo kamo na kamaide yo. Or like, let's always be in the kamairu, the sort of stance, the pose, the position of come on, or like, come on, let's do it. I'm surprised they didn't add a thing about biting duck into there, but I guess maybe it was overfull. Plus, duck don't have teeth, so, you know, kamo wa kamenai, kamo. Anyway, then a really fun one to say, which I also think is original to the song, which is katta, or I bought it. Kata, shoulder, tataki, to hit. Kata tataki being a shoulder massage, but then it's kata tataki ki, or a shoulder massaging machine, takakatta. So, kata tataki ki takakatta. That's really fun to say. You should do it. Pause the video and try it out. And that's obviously hard to say because of all the kas and the tas and the keys. The next line is oya oya yaoya ni oya ayamari. Oya oya here is just like whoa whoa, like oh my gosh. And then yaoya is a green grocer. This is one of those things where like you just have to know that these three kanji are read that way. But then you are o ayamari, or so it's like oh wow, you gotta apologize to the greengrocer. And this obviously just has a bunch of o repeated sounds. And then moshiya oya wa imoya ni ayamari zumi, or like oh, perhaps your parents have already apologized to the person that sells potatoes. And that of course has yas, which link to the prior line, but then like oyawa, imoya, that's like a lot of rhyme, a lot of things that get your tongue all twisted. They've done a really good job, in my opinion, of like making up new ones for this. And there's even some interlinkage because we keep talking about food with remon mo meron mo peron to tabetaga, or like I peron, which is one of those onomatopoeia again, very, very easily, very quickly eating a lemon and a melon, mon ron ron, right? Banana no nazo wa imada nazo nano dazo, which does not really link to the other one, but is, you know, just tricky to say, but it's the mystery of the banana is still imada, a mystery, and you have, of course, the banana and nazo, so lots of na pairings, and then nazo, imada nazo nano, and then dazo at the end. Again, if you look at the romanization, it's really easy to see all the kind of repeating sounds, and repeating sounds tend to be what makes our tongue get all twisted. The next pair of lines list a bunch of stars. You have oshiza, shishiza, sasoriza, samazama. So I actually haven't memorized what all these are, but I'll put them up here. But they're just the names of the stars that you see in like horoscopes. Although samazama at the end, of course, links to that za sound that we get at the name of all those constellations to make it a bit more fun. It's just like these constellations exist and there's a bunch of different various ones. And then are wa Andromeda za dazo, which is, oh, that is the Andromeda star. And the dazo ending there, of course, repeats the dazo ending of the prior line. And then we get like one of the hardest ones just to say at any kind of speed. So I'm just going to read this one off. I just admit defeat. Because this is like a buffalo situation where you're going to have verbs and nouns that kind of have the same thing. So buta ga buta o butsu, when a pig hits a pig, butsu means to punch. Butare buta, or the buta, the pig that was hit, right? Butsu becomes butareru in the passive form. Ga buta butsu, so the pig that punched him, hit him. O buta no de, punch that pig. Taking that all together, when a pig hits a pig, the pig that was hit hits the pig that hit them. And then buta buta to butareta buta ga butaoreta. Or the pig that punched and the pig that was punched, bu taoreru, which is like taoreru, to collapse, to fall down. The bu emphasizing that, but also, you know, it's a bu, the bu sound is there. And you know what? All right, let's just try it. Buta ga buta butsu to butare buta ga buta buta o buta no de buta buta to butareta buta ga butaoreta. That was the first take. I'm not lying. I'm proud of that. All right, and then we end the song with a nice little hayakuchi kotoba o kuchi kuchi ni kuchi ni shina. And this is just, tongue twisters. O kuchi kuchi ni, which is an adverb that literally is like mouth, mouth, but like with every person doing it. Kuchi ni shina. So this is shinasai, a shortening of that. So everybody please say tongue twisters. Kotsu kotsu yari suzukereba, or if we just keep at it. And of course, kotsu kotsu kuchi kuchi kind of have, a rhyming pair, a rhyming-ish pair. Kachi kochi no kuchi mo ugoki dasu hazusa. And that's just like a mouth that has gotten all tough and hard will become easier to move. So like that's the song. That's what it all means. And hopefully in going through this and showing the romanization, you can see why some of it is harder to say. Certainly it's extremely hard to say when you have to say it to a rhythm and a time limit rather than when you can do as many takes as you like in your office for a video that hopefully at least someone will watch. But yeah, I haven't seen an actual explanation of the song, so that's what they all are. Although, again, only some of these are like extant, well-known hayakuchi kotoba. But the entire song, I think, is very impressive in terms of how it's built, and of course, how it's performed. And if you want to get your tongue better at, pronouncing Japanese, you can definitely just say the lyrics to these songs, as well as I highly recommend doing a lot of conjugations of adjectives that have a lot of repetitious sounds in them. For instance, atatakai is very fun to conjugate into atatakakunai, atatakatta, and atatakakunakatta. And if you just repeat that over and over, your tongue will get better at pronouncing those kind of Japanese sounds that have a lot of repetition in them. That is my haku for you.